John, what's going on, dude? John was my brother's name.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Like, digging the flags. Don't tread on me. Nice. American flag. Finally. Got someone to match me.
American flag, Gadsden flag, North Carolina flag.
Fuck yeah.
I need to get a Virginia flag at some point.
Yeah.
My girlfriend's from Virginia.
Oh, nice. Well, you got Godzilla, so that's good enough.
Yeah.
it kind of encompasses what's going on, right? Dude, I went to... I always start and I go way off on tangents. For everyone listening, this is John. This is episode 105 of TPC. And today, I believe we're going to talk about astral projection. Because you've got a lot of topics to talk about, but I figured let's do one. I want to do one focused on that, and then we can fuck off with some other episodes if you're down.
Yeah. Well, that's what that's how we started talking. Yeah. Was because of the astral projection, and then the more and more we've talked, more and more shit that we've found would make good episodes.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. I had a guy on named Thomas last week, and he operates like big ass construction equipment, but we spent the entire episode talking about Far Cry and Xbox. I don't think we said a single word about construction. So but now that's out of the way. Going right off on a tangent, doing the exact opposite of what I just said I was going to do. So I went to bed last night, and it was just, well, I don't know. One of the riots in Minneapolis start like today's Saturday, May 30th, 2020.
They kicked off, I want to say Wednesday or Thursday.
Okay. All right, yeah. So me and my buddy did an episode, I think, on Wednesday, and we were talking about, because he did episode number 1 in December, and we talked about how much has changed, and we were like, what's crazy is how the biggest thing is, it's so big and then it's gone before you can even think about it, like Notre Dame catching on fire, or World War III blowing up that Iranian general, and it's just it's in the mind's eye 1 second and then out the next. And we were talking about so we started talking, we were like, what's the next big thing? We don't know what it's going to be, but we're going to look back on this episode, and eerily enough, we said, hey, a musician hasn't been killed in a while. We were like, just because we were trying to, celebrities die, but we're like, a Tupac or a Biggie, when's the last time someone's been iced? 2 hours later, some rapper was shot and killed. So that was kind of weird. And then, but since then, now there are riots across the country, and it's it's like, there it is. There's the thing that we didn't even, so I don't know what I'm going off. Oh yeah. So I woke up this morning, and it seems like the riots have spread to several cities.
Yeah, I was seeing that.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting thing to look at, because there's it just, I don't even know what to say on it, because as somebody who you look at me, I'm a heavily bearded white dude with flags hung up all over his office. I'm not exactly in a position to talk about corruption in law enforcement.
Us white guys can't really, we can't drop our 2 cents.
But then at the same time, you've got the mistreatment by law enforcement of minority groups. And I saw something today about a cop who beat beyond recognition a white dude who had mental illness.
Crickets.
Beyond recognition, you covered in blood and scratches, and died days later. And there was no talk about that. And there was a little bit when it happened, but that's one of those things that like you said, is in the mind's eye and then goes again. There's somebody who struggles with mental illness personally, seeing that, there is a lot of issues with accountability in our law enforcement. And that's something that, definitely needs to be, something needs to be done about it. My best friend, his uncle, is a cop. He's one of the greatest people I've ever met. He's a great guy. And he has, in private conversations between he and I, has said that, there's some really fucked up shit that goes on. And there's the accountability just isn't there.
Yeah. It's, I mean, yeah, as someone that suffers with mental illness myself, as someone that lost a sibling named John to suicide in 2014. Yeah. As soon as you said that, I thought like, man, if the reason why like my brother was gone was because a cop beat him to death, fuck, dude, I'd be out at the nearest Walmart with a flamethrower. Like, It'd be like, yeah, man, it's terrible. And like, no part of me, like a lot of people are like, riots are the only way to get things done. And I'm like, that's a terrible mindset. Like that, because now you're just hurting people that didn't have anything to do with it. But at the same time, like, how else do you get the nation to kind of pause and be like, okay, what happened? If you just, I hate to say it, but if you march peacefully in the streets, like, it's a 2-second clip on the evening news. If you burn down a Target, now you got the president talk, and but then it always goes, property destruction is terrible. I guess that's what insurance is for. Not trying to downplay it, but now you have a protester that was killed, and last night you have a federal officer that was killed. So now you have 2 deaths. Now you have 2 people that no longer have a father or a mother or a brother or a sister, and now it's truly okay. Now 1 person died, and now 2 more have died because of it. Yeah. Now
and then that is something that is going to be used as a, well, that may have happened, but look at what the protest did.
Yeah.
And that it always tends to detract from a message when there's negativity, and there's going to be something negative in everything that you do.
Yeah.
There's going to be some jackass who's going to take advantage of the situation and do some fuck shit.
Yeah.
That's just the way humans in large groups are.
Yeah. It's like what was that South Park episode about the Coney 2012 guy who was beaten off in the streets of San Diego? Yeah, completely steals from the message. None of it matters when it's whacking off and jackety slap. But yeah, you're right, man. It does. It completely takes away from the message, like, because now it's there's a bad taste in everyone's mouth. Like Colin Kaepernick, like him or not, he did it completely peacefully. Yeah, like I get the whole, you're worth $100 million, you're a bitch, stand for the anthem. Sure. But I also have a lot of friends that served in the military that are like, I hate it, but that's what you fight for, is to live in a nation where you are free enough. It's like when people are like, Trump is a dictator, and it's like, dude, the fact that you can tweet that and that the Stasi or Gestapo aren't kicking down your door and killing everyone in 3 generations, that shows that is not a dictator. And it's like the fact that you can kneel and you're not beheaded, I think that in itself shows the power of just how great the country is. It's when you say you can't kneel, now all of a sudden it's like, well, how free are you? So, and
that's, you mentioned, people in the military saying that, like, I was only in for a year before I injured myself, but I was in the Army. Mm-hmm. And whenever anybody asked me, because a lot of my friends and when I was in high school were those kind of those types of people that if you join the military, then you're disgraceful, you're
a baby
killer all that type of stuff, because there is still that mentality a lot of times, which sucks. But I had friends who, maybe not to that extreme, but I had friends who shared that type of mind frame, and I told them, I had somebody just absolutely griping and hollering at me and cussing at me about me going in and joining the military. They said, with everything you've gone through in life, how could you do something like that? I said, because because I'm fighting for every American.
Yeah.
When I signed on that dotted line myself, I signed for the right for somebody to spit in my face and call me a baby killer.
Yeah.
I signed up to fight for the right for somebody to light the American flag on fire and, insult everything that I love about this country. Because there's so many places in the world, and there have been so many times throughout history where that wasn't possible. And the fact that we now live in a place and time where you can do that stuff, you can do all that. I want to keep that. And that's why I signed on that line. And I told them that. And there was one of those awkward pauses. They were just desperately trying to grab it at something to say. And all they could come up with, well, you still shouldn't have done it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay. It's like, well, at that point, it's
all
like,
right,
okay.
bud.
Okay. All right. Got you, bud. Yeah. Yeah, man. It's like, it's not only does this place exist, this like island of space time, but it's not just that it's not like we're free to do everything, but we're just some like shit backwards country. Like, you're free to do everything, and it's the safest, most prosperous place. And you're gonna get those people, America's a third world country, and it's like, yeah, you know what, nothing's perfect, and that's great that you can, but the reality is hey man, like, I have too many friends from former Soviet bloc nations that got their green card and came here, friends from South America. Dog, it's that this place exists, and it's also a place with unrivaled freedom. You have to protect that. It's like when something great exists. It's like, it's like why, a lot of people, it's like, I can never work for a company. I'd have to start my own thing. I couldn't work for someone else. But every once in a while, there is something like I don't know, like a Lamborghini or an Apple or whatever, Lexus, Rolex, where it's like, there's
Smith and Wesson.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Barrett. It's like, there's something where it's like, I could work for that, because it's like this thing where it's like, why does Tom Brady, or not anymore, why did he stay on the Patriots? It's like, because there was this special thing. But we're going way off into the weeds.
This is absolutely not astral projection. But
and that's it, everyone. Hope you enjoyed it. There's astral projection. So astral projection. So the only things, so I've been meditating with like 2 1-year breaks. I'm going to turn the fan on my laptop because it always heats up. Let me know if it gets too loud. Can you hear that?
That's fine.
Beautiful. Actually, I'm going to turn the AC on too. But with astral projection, so I've been meditating since probably like spring, fall 2008, almost every day. There's like 2 1-year periods where I took a year off, and not coincidentally, those years were incredibly unenjoyable. Only realized that in hindsight. And as someone that's done psychedelics on 5 occasions, all by myself, really trying to go inwards and find something. And I've always said, despite doing like a heroic dose of mushrooms and silent darkness in a dark room with the blinds closed, I've always, not every time, but I've had crazier experiences on meditation. It's maybe only a handful in my life, but I've had a couple like truly, like psychedelic, earth-shattering experiences. I've always just kind of blanketed it all as meditation. I don't really know anything about astral projection.
Yeah, so I'm actually very limited on knowledge beyond my own experiences on it.
We all are.
Because it's something that for the longest time I didn't realize was astral projection. I just chalked it up to like lucid dreaming type thing.
Okay.
Because I was aware that what I felt in those moments was that I am not in my normal environment. I'm not in a normal situation. I'm not, I felt like I wasn't in a physical body as well. But a lot of times it was much more just a basis of I am outside of the confines of what we know, as far as physics, as far as that type of thing. It has mostly happened. I'll wake up in the middle of the night and I'll just lay there for a little bit, not necessarily trying to go back to sleep, just laying there thinking, and I'll start to just kind of feel this this is going to sound really weird, but a stationary drifting feeling.
Okay.
Where I know I'm not moving, but I feel like I'm drifting away from where I am. And I just kind of just let go and let that happen. And then it starts to go into the astral projection type, where I can feel that I am out of my body, for lack of a better term, and I am moving through. It almost feels like moving through like a fourth dimension. Mm-hmm. Because it's that same feeling of moving through three-dimensional space, but knowing that physically I am stationary in the three-dimensional space.
Yeah.
But there is that movement, that same feeling of movement occurring.
Yeah. So it has to be it has to be another plane. X, Y, Z, or I don't know. A, yeah.
Yeah. And it's really just for fear of using the most stereotypical hippie term, it's just a really far out feeling. Like,
yeah.
It really is. That's the only way to describe it.
Yeah. In college, I remember there'd be some days where I wouldn't meditate, but I would just lay down and just close my eyes, and I could feel myself start to like drift. And it was, sometimes it would get scary, and I'd wake myself up and be like, nope, not going to sleep. I don't want to, I don't like to go into this awake. I like to just be in a dream. But every once in a while, I'd sort of, I guess get the balls to like, let's just see what happens. And it was always like this deafening roar that would come over my ears, like, and I'd start to almost that feeling, where you fall and then you wake yourself up. It was like, it'd start with that. And then it was almost like, I just fell straight down or something, or I even maybe flew up. But it was always like I knew I was not leaving, but it was nonetheless. And you leave, and then you almost like completely break free. There's like no strings touched to your body, and then I would sort of stay conscious for a while, and I'd either snap back awake, or it would devolve into a full on like dream, and then the weird shit starts happening. You forget where you are. Next thing you know, you think it's completely real, and it's
Yeah,
but
and that's really like what it was the first few times I was doing it. Because like I said, I knew nothing about astral projection or anything like that when this was first happening. And the first couple times, it felt a lot like sleep paralysis, honestly.
Yeah.
But so I had that same like fear the first couple times, but I eventually just put that away and said, look, you're still in your bed.
Yeah.
No harm is going to come to you. Just let it fucking happen.
Yeah, just go.
And so I started doing that, and like you were saying, like the sound of almost like wind blowing. For me, it was always like the crescendo of an orchestra.
Yeah.
Just full, entirely surrounding, just rising, like auditory feeling before it just felt completely quiet. And that's when I was in that state of, most of the time, with the exception of really only one occasion, which is something I told you about, and I'm sure we'll probably get into at some point. But there's that moment where it just falls quiet, and looking around in that space, it looks a lot like outer space.
Yeah. I know you're talking about.
And I just take that opportunity, and most of the time what I do is just kind of soar through that and just explore that, because to me it's just the most beautiful, just absolutely peaceful, calming experience I have pretty much ever had.
Yeah.
And that feeling, that escaping of whatever's been going on in my life, really helps me to rebalance myself, basically. And it's basically just like the same as going and taking a drive in your car when you're feeling stressed out. you're getting out of that situation going on in your house or wherever you are. And for me, doing that is escaping everything that's going on, not just the current situation. It's an overwhelming, like, from work, from home, from the social climate, everything that's been going on in the world. It's just always a good, there's no distractions, there's no restrictions, there's nobody else there to tell you anything or piss you off or hurt your feelings or anything like that. It's just true independence, isolation, and true freedom.
Yeah.
And it's such an amazing experience.
It is. I mean, so like with meditation, so let's say I've been doing it every day for 10 years. So we'll call that 3,600, right? 10 times 365, call it 3,650. I'd say of those, I've had like 3,500 just good experiences where I kind of just, gather myself, even if I only hit that peak for 30 seconds, I'll meditate for, let's say, 10 minutes, and I just get that 30 seconds of like, don't worry about next week, don't worry about yesterday, what are we doing today? I got some schoolwork today, got a podcast guest, and that's it. All right, let's do it. The vast majority have been that. I'd say maybe like 5, maybe less than 5 have been like this insane, almost like divine, like where I can't really explain it. It's like, yeah, it's just completely stepping out of reality. But I'd say I've probably had like 100 of what I think you're talking about. Maybe not on that level of like movement, but I know what you're talking about in terms of just peace. It's not. It's like we're always so used to the polarity of like happy and sad, or like anxious and excited, but it's neither of those. It's above the polarity. It's just. Yeah. I saw a comment on Reddit, and it was like, meditating for the first time is like stepping off of a treadmill you've been on your whole life that you didn't know you were on, right?
Exactly.
Or it's like when the washer machine finally stops and you're like, you didn't even realize that it was going. It's and it stops. And
didn't realize how loud it was.
Yeah, you're like, oh, what is this peace? That's what it is. It's just everything sort of just, and you're just, I don't know if you've ever felt this, but like when I've been in that spot, muscles relax that I didn't know were tense. Like there's like in general, if I take 2 seconds and I'm like, am I tense? I'm like, okay, yeah, my shoulders are okay, yeah, whatever. And then but it's conscious. But no, there's like a different kind where I'll get to that level and all of a sudden like I'll feel something like my hips or like my upper back just kind of, and I'm like, what the fuck? I thought I was relaxed. And it's I know what you're talking about. It's just silent. You mute everything. It's like shutting the windows on the highway and turning the radio off. It's just, and it.
Well, see, I drive a 21-year-old car. There's still a lot of sound going on.
Okay, yeah, but yeah, compare, compared to just, it's just, yeah, and goddamn, if you don't come out of that feeling like you just got up from a nap and had a cup of coffee, like you're just charged for. Like you can take on anything. It's like what Terrence McKenna says. He's like, problems they roll up and beat off your back like water on a duck. It's just like, and yeah, man. I know what you're talking about with when you said it looks like space. I would say those like 5 really psychedelic meditation experiences I've had. They've all had something to do with where it's not like my eyes are closed, but I'm definitely like looking at something, and it's. Yeah, the overwhelming feeling is just is volume, is space, like standing in the middle of a basketball court, like an empty arena, and it's like, oh wow, it's like, oh, I couldn't touch the sides if I wanted to. It's you see, it's now if you have the same problem as me, the problem is how do I get back to that spot?
Yeah, and so for me, for when I first started doing it, it was a lot of, all right, I gotta figure out how to do that again. And for the longest time, I couldn't figure out how to do it again. And honestly, I still to this day don't know how to tell somebody to do it. Honestly, what it is that you've got to get, for me, I've got to get to the point where I'm like, all right, I am not going to keep trying to make it happen.
Yeah.
I know that sometimes it's going to happen. I know that oftentimes it happens exactly when it most needs to, when there's the most stress going on, and it's going to happen. I had to throw my hands up from trying to make it happen, and just let it happen when the opportunity presented itself.
Yeah.
Because when you try to force yourself to do it, when you try to make it happen, I have never, ever been able to actually get it to happen. It's something that just has to come naturally. It's to me, it almost feels like there's a doorway, there's a gate in the way that you cannot open. If you've ever tried picking a lock, you know, sometimes if you end up putting way too much pressure on that tension rod, you're not going to be able to move those locks at all. If you just loosen up just a little bit on that tension rod and you just move the pick just right, that tumbler will just slip right into place and the lock will pop open. And it's almost like that. It's almost that level of, I'm trying so hard to do it, I can't get it. But when you just take a minute, you step back, you relax, you breathe for a second, and you're like, all right, this is going to happen. I know it can happen. I'm just trying too hard.
Yeah.
And when it's so hard to stop trying so hard.
I know that in itself sounds a lot like Alan Watts. He's like, it will happen. It will happen when you realize there's nothing you can do to make it happen. So you tell yourself, there's nothing I can do to make it happen. But why did I say that? Why did I tell myself there's nothing because subconsciously I think if I say that, it'll make it happen. No, you can't try to do it. You can't not try to do it. And you can't try to not try to do it. You cannot. And he goes, and once you come to that conclusion, you truly realize all you can do is wait. And then it happens.
And for me, like I said, for me, it has always happened when I wake up in the middle of the night and I realize that everything is just perfectly aligned for me to be able to do it. And I'm like, all right, fuck it. Let's goddamn go.
Let's go. It's like Hunter S. Thompson with psychedelics. You don't find psychedelics. Psychedelics find you. And it's when you're hunting for LSD, I'm stressed. I need to just, no. It's when it's almost just like you're just walking down the street and it's just like, it's just right there, pop. There you go. It's.
Yeah. I wish I could have that opportunity.
Yeah, I know, man. It's. Yeah. I really do think it arises when like you need it, but yeah, that's the most disappointing part. Even with meditation, I've tried so many methods. I mean, I can't begin to count the methods, let alone the times I've tried each method, but just everything. And over 10, 12 years, it's happened when it happens, period. It just happens.
And one thing that I noticed a lot, like you said earlier, seeing the stuff on Reddit, there's a lot of how-to guides and things like that, and a lot of people talking about how they're struggling with those guides. And I've myself, as somebody who has done it quite a few times, I have tried those methods, and I feel the start of it start to happen. That beginning feelings of movement, I feel start to happen, but it almost feels like there's a wall in the way. And I can't ever get past that wall when I'm trying to. It's only when my situation is perfectly imperfect, for lack of a better term, and the elements are right where they need to be. I'll just wake up in the middle of the night, which I do fairly frequently. I have horrible sleep. but I'll wake up in the middle of the night and I'll be laying there and I'll be like, this is the time when it can happen. Let's see where this goes. And I just close my eyes. I just think about my breathing. And then I try to stop thinking about my breathing, which that in itself is a hard thing to do.
Fuck, yeah.
But once you just can get to nothing's in your brain, I start to feel that movement. When there's nothing, I'm not focusing on anything, I'm not thinking about anything, and I start to feel that, and there's this almost immediate desire to want to, like, oh my God, it's happening, but you can't do that. For me, I've got to just be like, it's a thing, it's occurring, and just keep that mind as blank as possible. And once I've gone through and I'm in it, I can do whatever the fuck I want. You know, I can soar past Saturn, fly into the Andromeda Galaxy. I can do anything I want to do. And I can be 100% aware of what I'm doing as well. And I only come out of it most of the time, from my experiences, when I want to. Really? You know, if someone's trying to wake me up, my girlfriend said a few times, I was trying to wake you up for like 2 hours. I said, yeah, I was out. And I was. Not out of sleep, I was out of myself. Yeah. And when I want to come back in, I can. Yeah. And there's been a couple times where I've been woken up from it against my will, but I feel awful after that happens, to be honest. If I don't come out of it myself, I just feel groggy and bitter, and I feel like I just chewed on an old coffee filter, basically. It's an awful feeling. So what is it like? So you're describing it. It's almost like you've got this leash on, and once you can get it off, then you're free. But like, yeah. So yeah, I've never had that experience. Mine is always like, it's like the second I realize I'm doing it and I like want to do it, whatever it is, peace, bliss, awe. It's whenever I'm like, oh, this is, it's almost like, nope, yank, you're awake. I've never like, I guess, fully like crossed the threshold where it's like, and now you're free. Like, that's the hardest thing to do is unless you accidentally do it, it's impossible. It's so hard to figure out how to do it. Yeah. Because there is that extremely strong, oh God, it's finally happening. Yeah. Sensation. Yeah. And I I wish I could give you a piece of advice on how to get past that, but like I said, really and truly, for me and all of my experiences, it's just keep your mind off. Basically, the only thing I could say is keep your mind off it. It's almost like when you were like dating, or you've been trying to date for like years, and every once in a while you get a date, or it seems like you're clicking with a girl, and you're like, don't fuck it up, just don't fuck it up, just don't fuck it up. And then you fuck it up. Yeah. And then it's when you finally are just at your core, it's not even like try to act like you don't give a fuck. It's when you truly just don't give a fuck that it seems like you meet someone and you just effortlessly link up. It's just like, it's like walking around a house for the first time, but it's almost like you grew up in it. You just know it. And yet that's when it works. That's when like a beautiful relationship blossoms, is you're just like, you truly don't give a fuck. It just falls in your lap. The puzzle piece clicks. And even then, like, you don't even care that it clicked. You're like, oh, cool. And like, that's why it works. It's when you're like, don't fuck it up, don't fuck it up, don't fuck it up. Yeah. Game over. When you're trying too hard is the worst thing you can possibly do. Yeah. And it's a catch-22 because you can't try to not try hard, because that's trying. Yeah. Yeah. You just have to not. Yeah. And that's the thing, is you can't, you can't not. It just happens. Yeah. How do you win the lottery ticket? I don't fucking know. Buy a ticket. Yeah. But you got to act like you don't want to win. How do you do that? No. Yeah. It just, one day, it's, oh man, I won $600 million. You're like, oh, wow. It's, so when you said like fly past Saturn, fly past Andromeda, are there actual like the only quote things I've ever seen wasn't so much things as much the sense of just space. One time on like the craziest meditation experience,
I saw like an infinite plane of like geometry. It was almost like I was standing on like an Excel spreadsheet. And I like looked around, and it was just like these perfectly aligned things just go like converging on the horizon all around me. And it was just like, that was probably like the craziest conscious experience I've ever had, above psychedelics. It was just this like, it was almost like, it's like interstellar. I like stepped into like the fifth dimension. It was just like, I remember like, it was like I was standing on like the back of like one of those mail walls where everyone puts their mail in, and you're on the backside, you could see it all. I remember seeing myself at like different times in my life, and also seeing like my grandpa, like ancestors, and it was literally like I was standing in like the operator room, and I was like, oh, there's me as like a proto-hominid 2 million years ago. And like, hey, there's me in kindergarten in Arkansas. And it was, oh, wow, that's where I am when I'm 40? Oh, cool. And it was just, but it wasn't even like, oh, wow, it was just so matter of fact. It was like, oh, yeah, no. And it was just like, I looked back at the square that I walked out of, and I was like, oh, that's me meditating in my house in Athens, Georgia. And I was like, oh, okay. And it was just all these things. And it was like, I very much felt like I chose to go back to the Athens one. It was like, that one's kind of fun. And I just sort of like, not moved, but like, kind of, is like there. And I just, and opened my eyes, and there I am, 21 in Athens, Georgia. It's 2011. Like, oh. And I was like, oh, cool. Yeah, it was very, So, but that's the only experience I had where like I saw very real things. So you said,
I've definitely experienced something similar to that. That type of, just seeing everything from all of history just playing out in front of you. Like, I've experienced that a couple times. The one I experienced the most is just flying through space, and it looks like outer space. And like you were saying, it isn't like, holy crap, I'm flying past Jupiter right now. That's the storm that's been brewing on that planet for thousands of years. That's insane. It was like, nope, that's Jupiter. That's the red spot.
Yeah.
That's the Andromeda galaxy.
Yeah.
That's the remains of the pillars of creation.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Like, that's all it felt. But for me, the one that hits, and that always, I actually get kind of choked up trying to talk about it. This is one that days after it happened, days after I experienced it, I stayed up all night one Friday night to try to call into Coast to Coast AM. Because I needed to talk through this. And I actually did. I was the last caller on that episode, so that was fun.
Fuck yeah.
But fortunately, it wasn't one of the nights George Norrie was on. But that's a conversation for a different time. But no, I had that feeling, and I was out just flying as usual, and then I just felt drawn. I wasn't pulled. I just felt drawn into my grandparents' sunroom. And this was less than a week, maybe 2 weeks after my grandmother passed away. And I just sat down on the floor, looking out at the tree line, looking over at the field. And I looked to my right, and my grandmother was sitting there with a crossword book in her hand. And she looked at me, and sorry.
No, you're fine.
She said, I knew this was coming. She said that she had known that it was going to end up the way it did. She had recently been diagnosed with lung cancer and had been having memory issues. The lung cancer further basically created rapid onset dementia. She got the diagnosis late October, early November, and was dead December 3rd. And we just sat there together, looking at every now and then she would say, remember catching lightning bugs out there? You had that little plastic jar with the magnifying glass lid that you would keep 3 or 4 of them in at night and then go out and put them back outside in the morning. I said, yeah, I remember. I said, I also remember standing right over there as you were throwing one of those plastic wiffle balls to me, and I was trying to hit it with one of those big fat wiffle ball bats. I never hit it, but the one time I did, I clocked it and drove it right into the side of your leg. She said, yeah, that stung. Not as bad as when the rooster got me, though. Yeah. And she told the story of when one of the roosters that we had when I was a kid, mean little bastard, got her and with the spur and spiked her in the leg. And we talked about the trip to Tweetsie Railroad in the mountains here in North Carolina. We talked about all this stuff, and then she said, make sure you tell your sister about this. I think it's time for me to go now. And just kind of, she looked off and just kind of evaporated and drifted away. The atoms or molecules or whatever, the energy that made up her just returned to the universe. And I got to say goodbye. The day she died, I had come down with my girlfriend. We were living in Virginia at the time, and I had just come down, and hospice had pretty much said it's any day. And Summer said, well, if you want to stay here, I get it. But we needed to go back up to Virginia to get like changes of clothes and her medicine. I said, okay, let's do that. We started driving home, and halfway there, my mom calls and says, hey, how far away are you? And I said, we're halfway to Virginia. Or we're halfway up to where we were living. And she said, okay, if you don't hear from me again, come on back. If I call you again, then there won't be a point. I was pulling into the driveway, and my dad called me and told me that she had passed away. He missed by 15 minutes. 15 minutes before he got there, she died. In the house as she died was just her and my grandfather. They met in high school. They were 16 and 17 when they met. And they had been together ever since. They'd spent their whole lives together. And she went with just him by her side. And in that moment where I was there with her spirit, there with her soul, there with the energy that made up her, I could tell that that's exactly what she wanted. I knew that she wanted it just to be her and him. And she just wanted to make sure that I knew that she loved me and that my sister was loved, because my grandparents have been more like parents to me. My parents, they're part of a religious cult. That's a conversation for another podcast. But my grandparents were my parents for years. My grandmother was like a mother to me. And that final moment, that final goodbye, that's something that'll stick with me forever. And for me, that was what I needed more than anything at that time. And that was the first time I'd ever lost somebody close to me like that. I had lost, teachers before, and that was rough, but nowhere near, losing the woman who was pretty much your mother for years. And that moment where I got to say that final goodbye, that moment where she just said, that's what I want, basically said, that's what I wanted. That's the way. She basically said she wouldn't have it any other way. And she was so at peace. She was fully aware of all her memories. She told me she knew what I was saying to her before I left that day she passed away. And like I said, it's only happened either when I needed it the most or when I didn't know I needed it. That was the most just, I don't even know how to describe that. It was the most amazing, the most peaceful, and just absolutely the greatest experience I had ever had. Not just in that, but it was probably one of the greatest things I've experienced in my entire life. And yeah, it made everything that was going on at that point so much easier to deal with. I was in the process of moving back down here to North Carolina because I knew her health was kind of turning south. And that moment made me feel like I was doing the right thing by still trying to move down. And I was very, very grateful for that experience. And it's not something I would have ever been able to make happen. It's not something I knew was going to happen. It's not something I planned on trying to have happen. It just happened. And there are really no words to describe just how amazing, how perfect, how necessary, how everything that experience was for me.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Thank you very much for opening up to me, my friend. No, seriously, it's stuff like that it's like I think so many more people have these experiences than any of us know because no one wants to talk about them.
Yeah.
Right? Not because they weren't peaceful, not because they weren't beautiful, but it's almost like, how do you say that with a straight face kind of thing? It's like, I lost my brother on April 15th, 2014, a suicide. I was down in Georgia, 700 miles away from him, with my girlfriend at the time, and it had a panic attack in my dream that I was looking over his shoulder, and I saw him, write a note, get all of his stuff, get a gun, and go. And it happened the next day. And I remember piecing together, looking at like texts from family members, putting together times and places, and realizing that the dream was happening at the exact time that it happened. My girlfriend, ex-girlfriend at the time, but I remember her waking me up because she said she was sleeping and her ear was on my chest, or head was on my chest. It's a weird way to say ear. Head was on my chest, And she woke up because my heart was beating so loud. So she woke me up thinking I was having a terrible dream, and I was. But and then
that was more than just a dream.
Yeah, and like the next day, like parents called me, but like without giving away too much private information about my own family and for their own. This is my podcast. I'm free to talk about me, but just for their own privacy's sake, I won't go into detail. But checking through like actual like text message records, like timestamps, places, corroborating stories. It happened like down to like the exact minute and down to what he did. Like saw it all. Didn't tell my parents until like late 2018, almost 4 years, because it was like, I don't know who the fuck to tell this to. And that's what I was getting at, is like, how do you tell that story without someone looking at you like, okay, yeah, that's nice. It's like, but it was the most real thing that had ever happened. And it was, you know, but yours was peaceful, mine was terrifying. But what they both show is the fact that they happen and the fact that you experience that and I experienced this. All that really says to me is like, whether it's good or bad, it's like, well, hold on, this thing exists. You know, it's like whether you watch a scary movie on the internet, or whether you video chat with a friend, or whether you watch porn or get a recipe, the fact that like the internet exists, it's like there's this medium that exists regardless of what happened on it, but it exists. And that's how I look at it, is like, so hold on, there's this, I've had on this Delta Force guy who is like similar experiences with his parents having like heart attacks across the world, literally United States and in like Indonesia, and like knowing something had happened. All that says to me is like, there is this like medium, there is this dimension, and you know, people want to write it off as like, oh, it's spooky magic, and my argument is
magic is just science yet to be discovered.
Exactly. What Dale and I, the Delta Force guy, who's like 55, like not like a hippie, is a Delta Force guy, is like, he's like, no, it's, you know, it's like if you went back, imagine coronavirus. Okay, well, imagine the Black Plague. Imagine going back to like where they still thought the Earth was flat. What, Leeuwenhoek, did he even invent the microscope at that point? And there's just people dying. Yeah, naturally, you kind of thought it was a witch, because it's this microscopic thing happening on, we don't even know cells exist, let alone like the germ theory. And it's like, very much so, it seemed like black magic, like, oh wow, God's punishing us, everyone's dying.
Dr. William Barry in the early mid 18th century was looked at insane for washing his hands.
So was Lister. I mean, Lister's idea of like, hey, maybe we should change the sheets because there's actual fungus and mushrooms on them. You should or it's probably not the best idea to wear the same blood-soaked surgical gear that I just used to remove the kidney stones out of this syphilis-ridden prostitute while I go work on this royal nobleman, or this baby's like cavity. Like, a good book is The Butchering Art. It's called The Butchering Art, Victorian Medicine, and it's Joseph Lister's story. It is insane. Literally, like walking into like your next patient and having the severed hand of your previous patient just like in your coat, like. All right, let's get to it. Or like, but so point being is like, Dale and I were talking about, and I think you probably agree, is like, just because these things happen, it doesn't mean, oh, so you believe in woo-woo magic. And it's no, I believe in this like thing that happened that I can like corroborate with other people that happened.
Yeah.
This is just a form of science that doesn't, I don't think that belittles it. Falling in love is just like squirts of oxytocin and serotonin. It doesn't make it any less like beautiful, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's, excitement is adrenaline. That doesn't make it any less. Doesn't make a thrilling movie any less exciting.
Yeah.
Right.
The fact that, you know, there are numerous accounts of it happening Is it hard to explain? Abso-fucking-lutely.
Yeah.
I have no way to explain how I had these communications with my recently deceased grandmother.
Yeah.
I have no idea how that happened.
Yeah.
I have no more idea how that happened than you or the Delta Force gentleman you had on know how, you watched and knew about close family member deaths.
Yeah.
There is
nothing
explanation for it. But just because something doesn't have an explanation doesn't mean it didn't happen. Doesn't mean that it actually occurs. Great example of this. If you look at that, saying that what we experienced didn't happen would be just like going to the victims of the Zodiac Killer or the Black Dahlia or Jack the Ripper and saying, we don't know. We don't know who did it, so it couldn't have really happened. Like, that's such an outlandish that you would never do that.
Yeah.
Not to the same degree, but it's very similar to what it's like to tell someone who has experienced something like this, well, it didn't happen.
Yeah.
It's
simply a field of science we haven't figured out one day. And like one day it's going to be as like, maybe it's next year, maybe it's in 2300. But there's going to be a whole field of science. You can specialize in that in medical school, and we now know this as the Johnson field. And the Johnson field, as we all know, discovered in 2144, is when your consciousness, which we now know this, can project along. And it's like we don't know what like 93% of the universe is dark matter and dark energy. We know it's there. Yeah. We don't know what it is. Well, to me, I'm like, if everything we know exists within the 7% sliver, there's a lot of room for, explanation. That could very well be seeing someone, the night stories of, the night someone dies on the other side of the world. And you're like, my grandma visited me in my dream last night. And it's, there are tons of stories of people who are like, my father, who, used to sexually abuse me as a child. I haven't talked to him in 50 years. I had a dream with him, and he walked into my room and just said, like, I'm so sorry for everything. And she's like, and I forgave him. And, the next morning I woke up and found out this guy who I hadn't talked to in 50 years had an aneurysm and died last night. And it's like, well, come on, what the fuck is that, man? Like,
well, see, the wildest thing to me about all these experiences, and there's the scientific attempt to prove or disprove, it's mainly focusing on astral projection oftentimes, but similar things as this is the fact that they'll put like numbers on the ceiling that you have to try to read, and it doesn't happen. To me, the reason is because it's a separate plane. I know for a fact that I was not sitting on the floor of my grandfather's sunroom when this happened, but where I was located had the same setup as that room does. That's where I was. I wasn't directly in that room. I don't know. I can't speak on your situation because our situations are slightly different. But I know that from other people I've talked to with similar experiences to you, they didn't feel like they were in that room at that time and everything like that. It felt like a representation of
you were peeking
what was
through.
happening at that
it's
time.
Like you were like stretching time and just like peeking through,
Yeah.
Like one of those like cat tunnels that you can collapse. It's like if you were to just stretch it all. And that's what it's like. It's like you pull it all and you're peeking through, you're looking through. Maybe it's three-dimensional. Mm-hmm. It's like, no, I don't actually think I was there. Like, I know because my girlfriend woke me up in Georgia and this occurred in Maryland. Like it's you're like looking through this like porthole in space and time.
It just feels like those locations and the events occurring in them during this is a supernatural, extra dimensional or astral representation of, as opposed to actually being what's there.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that when I had that moment, that's where I went from this is just lucid dreaming to that experience changed it from this is lucid dreaming to this is something
same with
supernatural.
I'd been meditating for 6 years, and it wasn't until that experience that I was like, okay, like this is, you can knock on this. This is, I don't know what it is, but I now know this isn't, it's not just, oh, okay, that's a beautiful story. It's like, no. It's like something happened. It's like, imagine if you brought like a walkie-talkie back to like, not even that far back. What if you went back to like the Revolutionary War?
Yeah.
And you talk to George Washington across the Potomac, whispering, you're just like, hey, I think we should cross the river at midnight and we'll go. And he was like, yeah. Imagine if you didn't know that and someone's like, you can't do that. And you're like, look, I don't know how it happened, but I can very much tell you. And then it happens. And then your friend comes across the river at midnight and you're like, it's you don't have to claim to know. And the important thing is like to stay open-minded, be like, look, I don't claim to know what it is. Now if I was very strictly trying to tell you what's this and it's dark matter and that's when you start to lose credibility. I'm very open to, look, I don't know what this is. It's like a new disease. I don't know what this is, but I definitely think it's a virus. Like, okay, we're all in agreement that it's a virus. We don't know what it is. We don't know it's coronavirus. We don't know its mode of replication or evolution or mutation, but we all agree it's a virus. Okay, yeah, but it's like the general, okay, we got it. That's what it is like you don't entirely know what it is, but you know it happened. And those who are saying that didn't happen, that's not real, you're standing in the same camp as like, nope, Earth's flat, Earth is the center of the universe, off to the fires with him.
Why would I wash my hands? The blood and grime on my hands is a badge of honor because I did all these surgeries.
Yeah. Why do I need to harvest my crops? I sacrificed a goat to the thunder god last night. You idiot. Why do I need... I don't need sheep, or I don't need like a metal cage or a sword to fight this lion. I just said a magic riddle. Watch me. And then the lion rips my sternum in half. Like, you know, it's like, dog, like, I don't know what it is. To say it didn't happen though is, it's like the most real.
It's almost
thing
an insult.
Yeah. That's what I try to do, is I try not to attach my ego to it at all, because like I wanted to give it more credibility. So if someone's like, that didn't happen, I'm like, all right, that's fine. I don't know what it was. I know it happened. And there's too many other people who have these experiences that are, man.
People that by all means are definitely reputable individuals.
Dude, Nikola Tesla said he jumped out of his body and saw everything happening a couple seconds prior and in front of him. Like,
and you know what people will say? Well, he had sex with pigeons, so he's only so credible.
And hey,
the man invented, he basically invented the modern world.
Yeah.
But
and two,
he had a thing for pigeons,
and two,
so we can decry anything he said because of that.
One, he's a genius. And was it Albert Einstein when he was asked, what does it feel like to be the smartest man in the world? And he said, I don't know. Ask Nikola Tesla.
I don't know who it was.
I don't know what that is, and I don't want to like propagate it if it's not true, but it sounds great. But so one, he's
probably one of those miscredited quotes to Einstein, because there's so many of them.
Some like Facebook meme. So one, it's like, don't knock Tesla because he's a genius, and two, hey man, don't knock pigeons till you've tried it. Don't kink shame them. Come on, I thought we were progressive,
I'm not trying pigeons. I'm sorry.
Yeah, neither am I. But hey, man, if it's consensual, I'm fine with it, man. Full circle, back to the freedoms. If you're free, if you and a consenting pigeon adult, then who am I to judge? A mature adult. You guys signed your papers. Well, then go for it. And I think that is a perfect way to end this. That was full circle. So that, in a nutshell, is astral projection, pigeons, and rioting for everyone that skipped the middle. But yeah, dude, let's I'll text you after this. Let's definitely do another one on religious cults. And oh yeah, that'll be a fun one too. Hell yeah. Well, dude, thank you so much for doing it. Thank you for telling your story. Thank you for opening up. And
thank you so much for having me.
Hey, brother, I appreciated it. I talked to the former personal trainer of Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he's like a brilliant mental health guy, John Romanello. And he was talking to me about like my brother. Dude, I was crying like a fucking baby right here on the podcast. So don't be ashamed, man. It's
Hey, I held it together pretty good considering, I think.
Absolutely, yeah. I just need to get like a sorority girl on here crying because her and her sisters have the same shoes.
Yeah.
Then everyone will feel welcome. Yeah. All right, man. Yeah. What time is it? 3:02. SpaceX launch in 18 minutes. Given the weather doesn't fuck up. First time that American astronauts on American rockets from American soil will take off since 2011.
I know. It's gonna be awesome.
Will it happen though? That's the key.
I don't know where are they launching out of.
I think in Florida, right? I feel like let's see, SpaceX.
Florida,
launch.
Alabama, or California.
Yeah, I know they have Texas plants, but I don't think they take off from there.
I don't think they launch out of Texas. I think that's just mostly like commo stuff.
Florida.
It's out of Florida.
SpaceX and NASA gear up again for historic launch. What's happening? To make its second attempt to launch 2 NASA astronauts on Jesus, I can't talk. The International Space Station. Updated at 3:03 p.m. May 30th, 2020. Ooh. All right, man. Maybe it will happen.
Hey.
John.
Might have something else to talk about next time.
Yeah. Good or bad. That it's good.
Fingers crossed, knock on wood.
Yeah. So another week goes by, and just like the guy I had on a couple days ago, what will happen next? Right now, what's the big thing in the world? Riots, SpaceX launch, George Floyd, coronavirus. May 30th, 2020. I hope to one day look at this timestamp and be like, those motherfuckers had no idea.
Hopefully we'll be looking back positively.
Positively. They had no idea that world peace happened. Maybe it's Godzilla.
Maybe it's Godzilla.
They didn't know.
Just so long as we don't try treating coronavirus with atomic something or other, we'll be good.
Little did they know. May 31st.
Radiated iguana.
Yeah, May 31st, 2020, a day that will live in infamy. What do you mean? You'll know soon enough. Fuck!
Yeah.
They had no idea.
Just give it 24 hours.
This is like people on September 10th, 2011, or December 6th. What do you mean tomorrow's happening? Just hang in there, bud. But
just cross your fingers.
Just cross your
You'll
fingers.
be all right.
Your doors are locked, right? Yeah? You got water? Yeah? Well, then you're probably good. Just don't face east. What does that mean?
Do you have enough toilet paper?
I have enough toilet paper. Please, God, say you changed your socks. Never mind, then you're fucked. But that's how it's all playing out. We're rambling.
Oh, yeah.
John, thank you so much for coming on, brother. I will link you when it's uploaded. And I'll text you right now. Let's definitely set up another one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Peace, buddy.
Have a good one, my man.
You too. Take care.
Bye.